Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to an all new planty video. My name is Shannon and this is Planted 386. If this is your first time, hello, hi, and welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by and clicking. I appreciate you. I hope you will consider sticking around and hanging out with us. If you love all things planty, that is all we talk about on this channel, so don't forget to subscribe before you go. I also have a TikTok, an Instagram, and a Facebook. All of my socials are Planted 386, and I will definitely have that on the screen for you. If you're returning, thank you guys so much for being here week after week. I appreciate you all so much. I know I say it in every video, but I mean it in every video. Without you, I have no community and I have no one to talk to about plants. So thank you for being here. If you drop me a line down below, I will definitely answer you. I love getting to know you guys. It's one of my favorite things about this whole thing. So feel free to let me know what your favorite plant is or what you've been up to. I live for it, honestly. And without further ado, before we go any further, I want to talk to you guys about IAS because it is coming up like soon, super soon. And I am just so curious to know who is going. If you're going, let me know because I would love to link up and meet. I'm definitely going to be there. It is my birthday this week. So this year for my birthday, I asked John to go to IAS. So that is the agreement, is we're going to go to IAS and spend some time down there. I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, let me know. Let me know if you're going to be there. This week, we are going to keep it short and sweet and continue on in our How to Grow series. I hope these videos are helpful to perhaps the new plant parent out there. I remember when I first started getting into the hobby, I lived on YouTube and I greatly appreciated all of the people that came before me and posted about how to grow specific plants, because as I would acquire a plant, I would bring it home and the first thing I would do is go to YouTube to try to learn how to take care of it. So now that I've been in the game for a while and I feel very confident in my growing capabilities, I'm hoping to give back in a way that I deemed so valuable when I first started out. So if you're the new plant parent out there and you are growing or wanting to grow Anthurium, this might be the video for you. This week, we are going to be talking about Anthurium Vittarifolium, which is the beautiful plant right behind me. And the reason we're going to talk about Anthurium Vittarifolium is because I feel like it is an amazing starter Anthurium. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so I have my big Anthurium Vittarifolium behind me, as you can see, but because my variegated one is still a baby, a little baby, I thought I would kind of show her just because it's a bit easier than showing my large one. But she is here, she's right behind, and they both grow very similarly. They are the same plant. One is variegated and one is not. But I believe, if I remember correctly, my Vittarifolium was my first Anthurium that I brought home. It was either my Vittarifolium or my crystallinum, but they are vastly different from each other. And I feel like if I had to start all over again, I would have probably started with Vittarifolium and then worked my way into velvety Anthuriums. I find Anthuriums to be very easy to grow in general, whether it's a velvet leaf or not, but I know that there is an intimidation around growing them, and I hope to maybe alleviate a little bit of that because I find Anthurium, like I say, to be very easy to grow. The thing that I feel like people underestimate about Anthurium is how thirsty they are and how hungry they are. So we're going to start with that. We're going to start with watering. When it comes to Vittarifolium, I water mine roughly every 7 to 10 days. However, unlike your velvet leaf, heart-shaped velvet leaf Anthurium, I feel like this is one that can stand to dry out a little bit more than the others, though it quite loves a good drink, a good thorough drink every 7 to 10 days. In terms of feed, if you're new around here, I'm just going to say I am not particular to any one specific feed. I feel like they all do the same thing, if I'm being honest, in my experience. Now, I know that there are some people out there that swear by a specific fertilizer. My take on that is to find a fertilizer that works for you, that you feel comfortable using, that you see results from, and just stick to that, because there are so many out on the market and there are so many different price points that go along with that. And I don't find that the super expensive, hyped up ones that you may see talked about over and over again on the internet are really any better than what I'm currently using is Miracle Grow. It's a Better Grow product, and it is actually the orchid feed. I'll show it in a second. So just find a feed that works for you and use a diluted amount with every single watering. If I'm being honest, I pretty much fertilize all of my plants with the exception of, say, my cacti with every watering, just a diluted amount. So we'll talk about that, like I said, in a little more detail in a second. Another thing to note about Anthurium Vittarifolium is it is a long, strappy leaf. So you are going to need to keep that in mind. While this guy is super cute and compact in the moment, he will grow to be rather large. As you can see behind me, my Vittarifolium leaves are almost to the floor, and that is on top of this cabinet. I would say this cabinet is probably just under... It's probably maybe a little over 4 feet. I'm 5'3" for reference, and some of these leaves are, I would say, half my size. So you just have to keep that in mind when you bring one home. Try to think of a space that you're going to grow it in and leave it there. It's going to have to be somewhere up high. So a shelf on top of a cabinet, etc. The growth is rather quick, I find, with Vittarifolium. Typically, it's leaf after leaf with not a lot of downtime in between. That's at least in my experience. If it's happy, it's going to give you leaf after leaf. So Anthurium in general tend to be rather quick growers. So just keep that in mind. Now, one thing that is lovely about Vittarifolium that I've noticed is it's not an Anthurium that requires a repot frequently. In fact, the one that you see behind me has only ever been repotted once, and that was from the hanging basket that I got it in, which I believe was a 6-inch hanging basket, to the pot that it's in now, which is a 3-gallon nursery pot. I have never ever had to repot it. It seems to not mind. It continues to put out beautiful growth with no issue, and it flowers regularly. So that tells me that she's happy. Now, if I notice that it were to stop producing leaves or flowers, or its older leaves, if I notice them starting to brown or crisp, then I would look into repotting. But I've just noticed that maybe due to the fact that it does grow off of trees in the wild, it really seems to rely on these thick, chunky aerial roots to sustain itself, and it seems to be perfectly fine that way. To be honest, that works out in our favor, because I can't imagine a larger pot and the weight of that and where I would be able to put it. So again, that works out in our favor. Now, when it comes to pests, I have only ever once had an issue with pests on Vittarifolium, and it actually was on my variegated one. So not so long ago, I found scale actually on her leaves, which is so strange. I don't even know where scale could have come from in my home, but nonetheless, it did happen. So just keep that in mind. It's a relatively easy plant when it comes to pests. The only other thing that you may notice is, or I have noticed, is on the fresh new leaves, on occasion, there will be some spider mite damage, but that seems to actually happen more frequently with my velvet leafed Anthuriums versus my strappy or non-velvet Anthuriums. Now, you may notice some moss on the top of this pot. That is another trick that you can do to extend the life of the pot that the plant is growing in, rather than having to repot so frequently. Like I said, this one is a bit different to my other Anthuriums than in the sense that you don't have to repot regularly. But I do have it topped with moss because it gives these aerial roots something to root into, just a little bit more moisture throughout and between waterings. So I can see that I have a couple roots, and when I say aerial roots, this is what I'm talking about. Hopefully you guys can see that little nub right there. That's actually what we call an aerial root, or what is called an aerial root. And those little roots acquire moisture in the air and also helps it attach to, you know, trees, etc. So what we like to do is cover, or what I like to do, I should say, is I like to cover those roots, the ones that I can, with the moss, because that allows this plant to access moisture and it gives something for those roots to actually root into. So that is that. When it comes to light, I will give you an exact reading in just a moment, and I will show you the exact fertilizer in just a moment. I do have a bit of a support stake on this branch. You probably won't be able to see that, but I do have a stake up there kind of helping her. She does, these leaves are very heavy, so it does, I find, need a little bit of support, and that's something that I'm currently trying to figure out, like, what's my next move when it comes to supporting her. She seems okay. She's kind of just growing in the shape that she needs to grow to accommodate this space. But, you know, at a certain point, I may have to think about that. Now, when it came to the top and the vine sort of draping over the pot, I decided it was time to give her some support. You may or may not run into that. It's just something to be mindful of. So yeah, and overall, you guys, this is the easiest Anthurium in my collection. She never gives me a fuss. It's a very rare occasion that I have any issues with pests, browning tips, any of that. The only time the leaves start to kind of fizzle out is if it's an older leaf and it's just trying to sustain new leaves and is, you know, doing its natural process of shedding older leaves, which is totally normal and expected. I really think this one is pretty foolproof, and I would suggest it to anyone who's interested in growing Anthurium, wants to get a bit of a feel for the genus, and not have to worry so much about crisping or browning leaves, or, you know. Anthuriums in general are very thirsty, especially the velvet Anthuriums. They are going to want water every 7 to 10 days. It's just one of those things where everyone's conditions are different. Keep that in mind also. So if you live out in the desert where it's very dry, you may notice that your pots dry out much faster than mine do here in Florida, where my ambient conditions tend to run in the upper 50s, we'll say. So it really just depends on your conditions, your climate. It's also one that grows beautifully in ambient. It's not one that's going to require a cabinet. And I find it to look beautiful just draping like that. I love a strappy Anthurium. I just think that they add such a charm and whimsy to a space. And I am telling you, there is nothing in the world of plant care like watching a new leaf come in. I'm not sure how much you guys are going to be able to see that. Maybe I'll get some B-roll. But watching a new leaf come in and how tiny that leaf starts out, tiny. And then over the course of a week or two, just watching that leaf expand into something that ends up nearly touching the floor. It is such an experience, and I think that everybody that's into plants can get some kind of joy and fascination out of that. It's definitely what got me into Anthuriums, was watching those emergent leaves come in. I just remember being so fascinated by the whole process. And so again, it's a magical plant. It's going to add jungle vibes to your house and charm and whimsy. And if that's your vibe, it's definitely one to look into. I got both of my specimens from Blue Moon Tropicals. Most of my plants are from Blue Moon Tropicals. We also go live every Wednesday on Palmstreet. So that's 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. If ever you're curious to come and check us out, I would love that. Let me know that you came from the channel if you choose to do so. We also have a website, or I say we, but she also has a website. By she, I mean Haley, and that's bluemoontropicals.com. She did just update it, so there should be a ton of new items in the shop for you to check out. Deals are always better too on the website, so just keep that in mind. If you're curious to get an amazing specimen, she does have the regular green form as well as the variegated form. Now, if I'm being honest, if I were to do it all over again and I could only have one, I would choose the variegated one because there is just something so magical about these variegated strappy leaves. But if you're not into variegation, the green form is just as amazing. And I will say, I do think that the non-variegated version does grow a bit quicker than the variegated version just because there's so much more green and ways for the plant to produce the chlorophyll that it needs due to that. So let's get into lighting really quickly and let's get into the feed. Okay, what I have here is a little light meter. I just picked this up off of Amazon, and it is a handy little tool to have around if you're growing plants indoors because it does kind of give you an idea of what light they're receiving. And if you need to supplement light or remove light, it's just a matter of doing a little bit of research. You can pretty much, look up any plant and find out how much light it requires to grow efficiently. So yeah, we're just going to turn it on. It's very simplistic to use. There's just a power button. It reads in lux, so that's what I'm going to be telling you. And then I just hold it up. So it's getting about 475 to about 500 lux of light at the top of the day. Now the sun is in the high, it's over the house. So in this spot, this is the time of day where this specific corner gets the most amount of light. So yeah, it's only, 500 lux. It's not getting any more than that. Now we may get a little bit more of a read. I was thinking maybe down here just because of the lights from the cabinet, which, why am I holding it that way? Not really. These lights in the cabinet don't seem to affect it. And when we come down lower, it's about 380 to 390 lux. So that's an idea. If you get one of these meters, you can sort of measure where you have yours placed to see if it's getting sufficient lighting. I always like to give a read just because, I don't know, it's a helpful tip and tool and something that I have recently gotten into looking at. It wasn't something that was a big part of my routine in the early days of plant care, but I do find it to be helpful because you have a base point. And so if something's not growing well and you're trying to determine, is it light, is it water, you can measure your light and you can find out how much light that plant requires to see if you're in the ballpark or not. Okay, when it comes to feed, I've shown this many, many times, but this is just the Better Grow Orchid feed. And like I say, I use this on all of my houseplants with the exception of cacti. There are a couple cactuses that I do use this on, but for the most part, I just water my cactus with like normal, unfertilized water because they just don't require that so much. But I find this feed to be more than sufficient, and it does seem to cause my anthuriums to bloom more regularly than some of the other feeds that I've tried. So if you're looking to hybridize in the future or breed your anthuriums, perhaps this is one you may want to look into. When it comes to amount, as I said, I use a diluted amount with every single watering. So this is the scoop that it comes with, okay? I don't fill this scoop completely. I fill it about halfway, okay? I don't know, oh, can you guys see that? I fill it about halfway. There are little markers on the scoop, just half full. It doesn't have to be exact, but I use about a half a scoop per container of water. So my can that I use, let's just set him here, if he will. Okay, my can that I use is this big green can. If you hear chatter and clanking, those are my dogs playing. So this can, I wanna say, is 1.5 gallons. So about a half a scoop for every 1.5 gallons of water is what I mix, and then I just stir it up. It is a automatic, like it dissolves automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. You just kind of give it a little stir, and then I just go into watering every 7 to 10 days. And you're gonna wanna water thoroughly until you see the water come out of the bottom of the pot. I prefer to pot all of my anthuriums in drainage with cashpo. And by cashpo, I mean just an outer pot where the water can drain into the pot, and throughout the week, as it needs water, it can kind of pull or draw up the water from the cashpo. When it comes to substrate, this is my substrate of choice. You're probably not able to see it very well in this black pot, but I store my substrate outside in an enclosed like trash can so that nothing can get inside. But this is my soil mixture of choice. It's very fluffy and very airy. And this is from ProMix. I always have my substrate linked down below. It is the only substrate that I use. I did experiment back in the day with semi-hydro and all the different soils, guys. I've tried Fox Farm. I've tried a ton of mixes, okay, like just, you know, small business mixes, etc. And if I'm being 100% honest, there's nothing quite like ProMix. My plants love ProMix, and I also love the fact that I don't have to amend it with any other amendments. Keep in mind, Anthurium and a lot of our jungle aeroid type plants are epiphytic or semi-epiphytic. So they are growing on trees in the wild where they're not their root system is not fully submerged. Therefore, they're going to need air to those roots. They're going to need oxygen to the roots. So if you're using a dense substrate and you're not having luck with these types of plants, perhaps it's the substrate not being airy enough. And so what I love about ProMix is you can just buy the bag, rip it open, and repot your plants. You don't have to worry about amending. And in fact, if I'm being honest with you, if you live in a dry climate, it's one of those things where you may need to add something to retain moisture, because I know in my personal experience in my climate, it's about 7 to 10 days is all it takes for my soil to be pretty dry and to where it needs, you know, where we need water. So the only thing that I might amend with, and it just depends on the genus, would be some perlite, and I would just add it to that specific little batch. But I find that when you open a bag of ProMix for the first time and you stick your hands in there, it is so fluffy and so airy and really, truly a beautiful soil. Another perk is, and I'm not sponsored, they don't, guys, I only have like 1,400 subscribers, so they don't know who I am. I just am really that passionate about ProMix. I have, the trial and error with substrates can be very frustrating, especially with soil, because not only is it a matter of getting your watering just right, amending it just right, but it's also issues like fungus gnats. And I have never, ever had an issue with fungus gnats in my entire time of using ProMix. So whatever they're doing over there, they're doing right. And if you want to save yourself a ton of hassle, just get the ProMix. It's about $47 for, I think it's 2.8 cubic feet, but that's a big, big bag of dirt and should last you for a long time. Just make sure if you open that bag of soil that you're keeping it in some kind of enclosed container so that nothing can contaminate, and you should have no issues. And that wraps up today's video on how to grow Anthurium Vittarifolium. If you guys have any questions or if I missed something, please let me know down below. I will be more than happy to answer your questions to the best of my ability. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. And if you're interested in getting Vittarifolium, or you've thought about getting into Anthurium, I can't recommend it enough. It is it's such an exciting genus to get into, and it's kind of addictive. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's like you get one, and next thing you know, you're like overflowing with Anthurium. It's just the way that it goes. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you next week. And if you're at IAS, make sure you let me know. Hit me up on Instagram so we can link up and meet in person. I would love that so much. I will see you guys soon. Bye.